How much money is actually in Social Security, and how is that? What is that kind of percentage of the federal budget?
The Social Security system holds a little under $3 trillion in reserves in the so-called trust fund. And that is, the expectation is that we will start drawing down those reserves in about 6 or 7 years, and then use up those reserves in another decade. And of course, it depends on, Social Security has to make all these assumptions about how fast the economic growth rate is going to be, how long people are going to live, how much wage growth is going to be compared to GDP growth, all these assumptions. And so they have different scenarios that they use. And under some scenarios, the Social Security system never has to touch the trust fund. And so it never has a shortfall, and it's fine for generations. Under other scenarios, it goes bankrupt in 10 years, and under other scenarios it runs out of reserves in 15 or 20 years. So it's difficult to say exactly, but if the intermediate scenario is right, and I think it's kind of pessimistic, but that's the one most people use, then eventually you're talking about the federal government transferring to Social Security in payment for these interest and reserves of almost $300 billion a year. So this is not chump change. That's almost about 8% of the federal budget. So this is why people are sort of alarmed about it. That we're talking about a big program making big demands on the federal budget.
And you mentioned that some other countries have sort of similar programs, that Japan is also facing these similar problems of a workforce supporting a larger, older generation. And do those countries have similar ideas about taxes, or like how is their approach different, I guess, from Americans?
Social Security benefits, public pension benefits, are in fact much more generous in most countries than they are in the United States. Sometimes replacing up to 2/3 of prior wages, where in the United States we replace about 40% on average. But a big difference, I think, between, for example, Europe and the United States is that because we do spend so much of our budget on defense and on programs for the elderly, and then to a lesser extent on programs for the poor, like food stamps, or programs for the unemployed, like unemployment compensation, the average working adult doesn't see the benefits of government spending. In Europe, the average working adult sees that their child goes to college for free, that they have free health care, that they have cheap and very well-run public transportation, that they have subsidized housing, that they have subsidized child care. So they see direct benefits, where Americans do not see those direct benefits until you retire. Unless you really fall on extreme hardship, you're not going to get much in the way of benefits from the federal government.
And so we've talked a little bit about the burden or the problem being this larger retired force than there is a workforce, but that then subsequent generations are smaller than the baby boomer generation. And so how does that factor in, like if Social Security doesn't go bankrupt by the time that these generations are retired? Does that sort of correct the problem, or is it still
Well, it doesn't correct the immediate problem, because again, this is not really a financial problem. It's really a problem of transferring resources from working to non-working people. And there have to be enough resources to transfer. We're a rich country. We can afford to transfer resources. The question is, how do we get those resources into a pool that allows us to transfer them? And right now we have so much income being held up by such a small percentage of the population that it makes it increasingly difficult. But, as long as we have a social compact, a social understanding that retirement is desirable, that people deserve to retire, that people can enjoy a period of their life where they're not having to work and that they will be supported during that period. That social compact can exist for as long as the human race can exist. I mean, there's no reason so in a sense, Social Security can never go bankrupt. There's this complicated fiscal problem that emerges because of the distribution of income and the distribution of who pays into Social Security. But the basic social compact can always be renewed.